When I was farming, it was up the road. There are 42-acre farm, a fairly good enough limestone farm. There'd be 4 cows, just like the maximum for all the small farmers about. And some of them might have no cows. But it meant that there was milk for the house and surplus then went to the creamery. I remember being out and my young fella ploughing for neighbours with 1 horse. But then times changed. We bought a new tractor, International. Sure, it was a big difference. My goodness, everything was so different. I was to mow for neighbours, like. I had mown for about 28 people. It was a fine tractor. It was still about.
The transition, it's not a day that you take over. You start farming as a young fella and you kind of tag along the whole way up and maybe go away for a while as well, as most young fellas want. And then you come back to it. From a career point of view, I always wanted to teach and kind of farm together, and they work well, maybe opposed to some other jobs. I'd be lying if I said I'm teaching because you can't make a living farming, as if it was a choice. The nature of farming in this part of the world, or in this part of Ireland for say anyways, is the economics of it don't add up to rear a family in modern society. Like the industrial wouldn't come close to even what the average industrial wage would be. I started farming in my own right, as I suppose what you call, well, what's a farmer now, but producing animals, maybe in my early 20s. So farming wise, what I had at the time, I would have had approximately 30 hectares, close to 50 sheep, meat producing sheep, and I would have had maybe 5 cows producing a suckler calf every year, which would have still been very extensive for the amount of land I had. So they're Texel sheep and what we would call, I suppose, better quality grass. And up there we have there's a speckled park calf. She'd be quite unique, there wouldn't be an awful amount of them about. And some Angus and a short-horn Simmental cross cow in there in the background. Don't know if you can see her through the bushes there, she's quite they're all AI bred, so we use AI on the farm all the time. So here's a bit of the breeding. So there's 2 types of rams there. The first guy there is called a Blue Leicester. He actually is a bit like your Holstein bull. He's bred for milk, okay? And also for good tight wool and a big long body. So he's crossed with what's called a Hornty O. They survive kind of in pretty, I won't say any conditions, but pretty rough conditions. Yeah. And their offspring, the female version, is called a mule lamb, top class. That then would be more for the maternal side of things. So you're trying to produce a good quality mother. And then that guy over there, the 2 lads over there, one's a Suffolk, the other fellow lying down is a Texel. They're big, strong, strong lads. They're built for meat, There will be some very high nature value grassland, and it's probably what will be seen as some poor quality grasslands. And then we also have shares on a commonage, which is some of our land abuts as well. So these are just sweets to get these ladies to come down, and there we get into the picture for you. The mountain definitely wouldn't be able to sustain a larger type continental cattle. I don't feel. Definitely not the mothers, because they need to be able to produce milk to carry their calf through the summer, if you're spring calving. The Dexters, kind of the grass that's up there, they're a much hardier breed. They're a beautiful breed. They're about half the size of your native cow. They survive outside the whole year round, which is a big plus to them. I mean, they're not inside in the slatted shed taking time, taking money, I suppose. I think we need to change our mindsets slightly, not throw out the baby with the bathwater. We still produce food, maybe not as much, maybe a better quality animal that's more suitable to the environment. We also need to be aware that we're providing ecosystem services, So like water quality, the way I manage my land, if I'm managing it wrong, what's wrong, the spraying, we're very close to water courses, spreading slurry up to water courses, trying to maximise grass production at the loss of the environment, that's going into waterways and that's going into water systems, and you have a huge issue with that, Carbon sequestration is another one, and how you can grow your grass. You're not ploughing the land. You're basically, you make sure not to eat it too bare, and things like that. You like feeding them. They love to see you coming, though. How natural it is for them, I don't know. My favourite thing to do is in the dead of winter, coming over here with 2 bales of hay and opening it up, and the smell of summer out of the middle of it, and all the flower seeds that were in there, that in the last couple of years we've been fortunate enough to make in this part of the world. You wouldn't always be able to make hay, but opening it up and giving it to the cattle, I mean, they just love it and they appreciate it, and you know they appreciate it, and it's outside it. Yeah, that if I had to be, what's the word? If there was a moment that you'd pick in the farming year that you really like doing, that would be one, yeah. And sometimes you don't have to think with your head the whole time. You don't have to be linear thinking. If you feel something in your heart, you know, sometimes that's a lot closer to what it's about. I know people will be like, Jesus, look at the buck talking about his heart, huh? What's he on now? But think about how you want your kids to live, you know, and you'd like them to feel a bit with their heart, you know. We converted to organic this year for the simple reason the only major input we had prior to conversion was our fertiliser bill. Honestly, this part of the world, there's not an awful amount of reseeding done. Now, we did reseed the meadow ground 7 years ago, so it was a mixture of perennial ryegrass and clover, following the usual way of doing it. We put on 3 tonne to the acre of fertiliser, and it got slurry. We made sure our P's and K's and right, and they still are, and they'd be topped up with slurry every year, and they would have got a fertiliser. But since that, you know, since we've gone organic, the drop in the amount of herbage we make is very less. The management is better, so we take the sheep off it earlier, 1st of April, as opposed to maybe the middle of April. That's where we had the meeting the other night, so there was about 40 people standing here, but you can kind of see there's a whole different, like one of the Chagas guys stood in one spot and he picked 10 different plants. There's loads of seeds in every field. You just have to encourage them to grow under the right conditions. I don't think, there is reason, and I understand where multi-species swards come into it, and accessing nutrients at different levels, and the nitrogen fixation of your chicken or your legumes and all the rest. But that's an input that you have to put in on the farm, that you have to require an output from. We're very extensive in this part of the world, so I'm not trying to milk 100 cows. I'll feed me 30 sheep, I mean, whatever, about 10 cows now and everything else, you know, without having to put in that. All your weeds aren't weeds are just indicators of the soil quality in that particular point and the land management. And if you manage it a certain way, you know, they'll cut out. You see all them trees? Like, I don't know, put a figure on how much carbon they're sequestering, right? But imagine I took them out of it. That's how much carbon is lost. It's only minor, but all of these things add up, do you know? And it's not that you're looking to get paid for it, but just, you know in your gut if you're doing it right or doing it wrong, you know? We can't, you know, this extractive nature that we had just taken from the planet all the time, this is ours, we want more, you know, empty pot will eventually run dry, right? So it's about putting it back into the land, into the soil predominantly in regenerative agriculture, but into the land and into communities, into people. Like, I just think biodiversity means from bacteria and fungi in your soil, by not using certain, you know, or overusing chemicals and fertilizers. I mean, there's a whole new science coming out of soil biology. Oh yes, missus, huh? You like that, don't you? The Leitrim Farmers Group, to me, it goes back to learning from each other. I would have been very involved in the knowledge transfer groups that were involved in Chagas and trying to think of ways that you can better your own income and your own farm from other guys and see what they're doing. I see it as a vessel going forward to both increase economic well-being of farming in Leitrim through whatever steps we're going to take, whether it be biodiverse or water quality or whatever actions we're going to take. But more importantly, to create a sense of identity that other people can get involved in, that the youth can get involved in, that there can be more of a female input to it, and that, you know, you can leave something after you that's maybe a bit, there's a structure on. But the one thing I will say about all farmers, or 99.9% of them, they really look after their livestock. So from the moment mammy gets pregnant, or even prior to getting pregnant, the ewes, the mammies are kept well, and then they're fed properly throughout the year. Then when they drop the ground, and the same with the cows, when the calves or lambs are born, they're given TLC, you know, without trying to push them too. You know, it's not about trying to get them to thinking about the chopping block or the butcher's knife at the end of the day. Unfortunately, when it comes to animals, that's their one bad day, you'd like to think, you know. The rest of them would be pretty good living in Leitrim, I'd like to think. Too often people get disillusioned when it's just about production and the squeeze of trying to make, you know, I mean, on average, the average cost of keeping a cow a couple of years ago was €700. I think with the cost of fertiliser it could be over 1,000 now. You're selling your weanling calf of her for 900. I mean, multiply that by 10, 40, 50, you know. Traditionally going by, every farm around here was a 4-cow farm, 3-cow farm, 2-cow farm. I mean, if we're trying to keep 50 cows on a similar thing, something, you know, it's pushing the case. And that's why farmers get disillusioned. So how we talk about farming is so important. How we define farming is so important. And I'd be very hopeful for the future. But it's like, if we're all in an armada together, right, and that's the destination where we want to get to, well then let's, you know, some bucks aren't heading off, just plowing, you know, destroying the place either. You're just content when you're farming. Sometimes you can overextend yourself because of your part-time job and because of the, I suppose, being married and having a family. They're what I love. So whether wherever we are, we'll make that work. But being fortunate enough to be married, to be farming in North Leitrim, I do love it. Yeah, absolutely. I feel very, very fortunate.